Report tonight that Robert Mueller's team is zeroing in on a secret meeting in the Seychelles in early 2017, a meeting involving an advisor to President Trump and an associate of Vladimir Putin. I want to talk about this with Congressman Denny Heck, a Washington Democrat who is a member of the Intelligence Committee. Congressman, good to have you back. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome, Don.
The Washington Post is reporting tonight that the special counsel's office has evidence of a secret meeting just before Trump's inauguration to establish a back channel between the incoming Trump administration and the Kremlin. The meeting involved Erik Prince, who has served as an unofficial advisor to the president, and a Russian official close to Putin. What's your reaction?
No surprise if that turns out to be this case. Are you talking about the meeting in the Seychelles, Don, or are you talking about another one?
No, I'm talking about the meeting in the Seychelles. But I have to ask you, though, I mean, back channel meetings, especially
Don,
go ahead.
The meeting wasn't secret. Erik Prince came before the committee and testified, and as a condition of his testimony, he asked that the transcript be made public. Anybody can go to the Intelligence Committee website and see. He'll talk about it. It defies credibility in every regard. What he suggested, that he was invited to the Seychelles. He showed up with the Emirates. They had a conversation about possible business. It didn't go anywhere. Somebody said, hey, there's this Russian guy that you might want to meet in the bar for a beer. I went down, 20 minutes with him. Nothing came of it. I went to bed. I got up the next morning and went home. There's absolutely nothing about that is credible.
But it wouldn't be the first administration or incoming administration to try to establish a back channel.
Yeah, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is whether or not there was something more nefarious afoot there. And as we all know, every time we've turned over a stone, something's crawled out of it in this regard.
Yeah. So this meeting happened in the Seychelles. Erik Prince was questioned. It was back in November. He failed to mention, as you said, that a Middle East specialist with ties to the Trump campaign was also there. That man's name is George Nader.
Yes.
And some of your committee are saying that that Prince gave misleading testimony. That's your interpretation as well?
I don't remember him mentioning George Nader whatsoever, but I think we're going to learn a lot more about this because that same Washington Post article is mentioning that George Nader was a cooperating witness before the grand jury.
Yeah, he is cooperating with the investigation after he was picked up at the airport. George Nader, the Mideast specialist, ties to the Trump team, meeting with Erik Prince. But so you think this is a significant part of the investigation?
It certainly holds forth the potential to be significant. But look, Don, there's so much here that is of potential significance, and I keep, in my great frustration, trying to at least get as much attention put upon the fact that we've simply got to do something about this right away in order to stop or deter Russian interference in our election coming up. It's what, 7 short months away, and we've done nothing? Congress has done absolutely nothing. And by the way, myself and some of my colleagues are going to seek to do something about that tomorrow.
Okay, well, let's talk about tomorrow. Because President Trump's first campaign manager, or candidate Trump's first campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, will go before the House Intel Committee for the second time. In his first interview back in January, he refused to discuss any activities or communications with his former boss. Do you think tomorrow is going to be different?
Don, I have as a policy not confirming or denying the presence or identity of any particular witness unless they've already been identified either by Chairman Conaway, who is functionally the chair of the investigation, or Ranking Member Schiff, until such time as that's been confirmed in open sources. So that's a better question to ask me tomorrow. But
you did say you were going to do something about it tomorrow. What did you mean by that?
We're going to introduce the Disarm Act, which stands for Directing Implementation of Sanctions and Accountability for Russian Mischief, Disarm Act. And basically what this says, you know what we did last summer when we passed between the House and the Senate on a vote of 517 to 5, sanctions against Russia, which the president refused to implement? Well, we took away all his discretionary authority in that regard, and this legislation would require him to implement sanctions against at least 5 of the oligarchs that are identified here, and at least 5 of the organizations that are identified here to have been a party to this.
Tomorrow, Congressman Denny Heck introduces the Disarm Act to make sanctions enforcement requirements of the executive branch absolutely clear.
There's quite a bit, Don, I should add, there's quite a bit of appetite for this. I was on the floor this afternoon and procured 42 signatures in co-sponsorship in a little less than an hour. The bill will be the, if you will pardon me, the Heck Lance for Congressman Lance of New Jersey and Lance Bass bill, Congresswoman Bass of California. There's a considerable appetite in Congress to actually have happen in direct, simple, blunt terms that which we requested last year.
Congressman Heck, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.